You have bought this video with a certain purpose, perhaps out of curiosity, but most likely because you want to learn something, and you want to learn something for making your marketing more effective. Now, to make your marketing more effective, you will have to find out what makes marketing more effective, and what better way is there than making a benchmarking approach, comparing to yourself to the best competitors in your field or in other fields to find out where you rank. Are you better than they are, or just as good, or you're not as good? Then you can do two things. One is to do the same, but do it better. But of course, if you march in the footsteps of somebody else, you can't overtake him. So maybe there's another way, and that other way, and both are valid, but the second one is more creative and requires more from you. And that is called bench breaking. And bench breaking means to do something totally different in order to reach perhaps the same goal or even a superior goal. Now, how are we going to proceed? You're going to get 12 guidelines for your organizational effectiveness, for competitive power. These are 12 areas in which you should score, and you should score, if possible, better than your competitors, and what is even more important, according to the expectations of your customer. For each one of those 12 points, you can attribute your present way of doing things with a minimum of 1 point and a maximum of 5 points. You should have a performance record, a scoreboard next to you, so you can note all the time as we go along what your score in this area is. So you would get 1 point for, no, let's start out with a positive one. You would get 1 point if you are outstanding in this area, unrivaled. 4 points if you are very good. 3 points if you're just acceptable. 2 points if you judge yourself to be poor in that area. And 1 point if what you do is either worthless or non-existent. If there are several sub-points, you divide up the sub-points, and then obviously you create the average. And with this approach, at the end of our sequence, with those 12 guidelines, the 12 areas that we're going to cover, you get a pretty good picture of where you stand and where you should stand, compared to the best in industry practice, compared to your own expectations, and compared to your ambitious goals to become better and better in view of the future competitive situation. So let's start with area number 1. And area number 1 consists of 2 questions which you should answer to the best of your knowledge. So have your scoreboard ready, have your pen ready. Question number 1. Are you really aware of your markets and customers? Do you know what their real buying motives are and their essential demands, today's and tomorrow's? Sounds like an easy question. It's probably the most difficult question that anyone can ask, because sometimes you don't know tomorrow's market. Most of you have a Walkman, or your children have a Walkman. Do you know in what way that was invented or that came about? Well, Mr. Morita saw his daughter use a tape recorder in order to use it for music that she was supposed to play or that she wanted to play indoors when she worked and also outdoors when she walked. So Morita thought that maybe that would be a good idea to produce one that was no longer a tape recorder, but what is now known as a Walkman. No statistics will tell you that. There's a certain amount of creativity that is needed. You know, the telephone book is full of facts, but it doesn't contain a single idea. Therefore, you have to mobilize ideas, and you have to find out what people want. For instance, all of you, or many of you, know what Nescafe is. Now, Nescafe was sold everywhere in the world under the same idea. It's convenient, it's tasteful, it's easy to make, and it's not expensive. In Japan, it didn't work. And Nestle was ready to give up Nescafe for Japan when someone in Japan, one of the employees, had the idea that maybe we should say Nescafe is being used by young people, young, modern, dynamic people all over the world. They use it in New York, they use it in Paris, in London, in Stockholm, in Rome, etc. And suddenly Nescafe became popular in Japan. Market research told tea producers that tea bags in England would never work because the English were used to make tea in a totally different way. Now the tea bags in England, or England has the biggest tea bag market in the whole of Europe and one of the biggest in the world. You all know probably, or some of you at least, know the story behind Coca Light. You know, there was regular Coke, and Coca-Cola made an inquiry and a survey what people would like, whether they would like something else, and whether they would like a lighter drink with less sugar in it, etc. And all the evidence pointed out that people wanted the new Coke, wanted the new brand. So they gave up the traditional Coke, made a new brand, and it was a flop. And there were lots of protests by people who said, how can we give up such a good product? Because taste is not the only thing that counts. There was a whole culture connected with habits and connected with drinking Coke that people had forgotten. You know, may know that most people, especially men, dream of convertible cars, but when it comes to buying cars, they buy station wagons. There's even a saying that says that gentlemen prefer blondes but marry brunettes. That perhaps is true, or perhaps it's not. You may know that, or you will find out. Supermarkets. In Germany, for instance, there was a survey made whether people like supermarkets. And the reply was 70% of the people were dissatisfied with supermarkets. So they thought, what do we do with supermarkets? Then they asked the second question, do you want supermarkets to disappear? There were 74% who said, no, no, they shouldn't disappear. Now, of course, that's not very logical, but if you want to find out about consumer behavior, you should not be logical. There is not necessarily any logic in what they tell you. So in one way, you have to look at customers through binoculars. But we always look the wrong way, because we look at our way. The customer sees us this way. Or sometimes we think that there are small things, and we look at it this way, but the customer thinks that they're very important, so they look at it in another way. Try and figure yourself as someone who tries to put on binoculars for seeing the things that customers want the same way as customers do. Now that's number one. Therefore, you must know their real buying motives and essential demands, not just possible demands. There could be costly mistakes. If you make that mistake, IBM went wrong in trying to find out what customers of big frame computers wanted, and they found that out, but that was the wrong category of customers, because in the future, everybody wanted small computers, and there came the PC, the personal computer, while IBM had taken a beating, and it took them a long time to catch up on their competitors. The second part of this question, still under Area 1, is how do we detect every business opportunity that presents itself? And can we act with sufficient speed and flexibility in order to exploit such opportunity? Just two examples and two possibilities. The people who are most likely to find out quickly about what customers want are salespeople.